Welcome to the Pacific Northwest edition of America Outdoors Radio. We've got a fast-paced hour of fishing, hunting, and conservation covering the nation and the Northwest, including 13 extra minutes of local content you'll only hear on Seattle's sports radio, KJR.
It's Saturday morning, and as always, I'm glad you're here. We've got some great regional guests for you today. Bob Loomis with Back's Lure is back. You'll be hearing from him at the bottom of the hour, and the topic is catching September trout. They are starting to put the feed bag on. It's a great time to head to a local lake near you to go after them. And if you're wondering maybe what lake to go to, don't forget that the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife Trout Derby continues through October 31st, and there's still a whole bunch of fish swimming around that have tags on them, and those tags are worth some prizes. Some of them some pretty darn good prizes, too. Just go to the WDFW Trout Derby page and look for a lake near you and see how many tagged fish are still swimming in it. You might just want to go out there and catch one, or maybe two, and turn those in for your prizes. The other guest today, Joey Rocha. He is the owner of Rocha's Dory Fishing out of Pacific City, Oregon. And this is a really unique way to go fishing off the Oregon coast. You actually launch in the surf in this big dory. You go set your crab pots, and then you go fishing for either salmon or bottom fish. Then on the way back, you pick up your crab pots. And by the way, the limit is 12 Dungeness crab there, a lot better than Washington State. And then you just basically ride a wave right back onto the beach. Joey will tell you more about these adventures that you can have on the northern Oregon coast at the end of the show. This portion of the show is brought to you every week by your Puget Sound area Sportsman's Warehouse stores with locations in Puyallup, Federal Way, Everett, Silverdale, and Sequim. They've all got the gear you need to be successful in the field or on the water, and now is the time to stock up for ammunition if you're a bird hunter, and don't forget to get your duck stamp too if you're a waterfowler. Speaking of hunting, WDFW has published their 2024 hunting prospects online. Just go to the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife website to the hunting page and look for the hunting prospects tab and find out. And still sticking with hunting, grouse hunting starts Sunday the 15th. Now, this used to start September 1st, but the start of the season was pushed back 2 weeks to reduce the harvest of breeding age hens and ultimately increase forest grouse abundance and availability for hunters. So head on up to a logging road near you and on public land and see if you can rustle up some ruffed grouse or spruce grouse or other forest grouse. Something else that opens up on Sunday the 15th is the high buck hunt. Your chance to take a rifle or a bow out and get an early season opportunity to pursue bucks inside the boundaries of designated wilderness areas in the Cascades. Be sure to review the regulations because not all wilderness areas are open for this hunt, and keep in mind that there's a lot of hikers out there, so be very careful about identifying that target before you pull the trigger. And if you got kids or grandkids, make plans to head down to Cowlitz County September 28th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Your destination is the Cowlitz Public Shooting Range, and what's happening there is Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife and a number of partners are putting on their annual National Hunting and Fishing Day celebration. This is a free event. It's family-oriented. Great way to introduce youth to target shooting, hunting, fishing, and other outdoor activities. It features a lot of hand-on activities to include a fishing pond, casting practice, target shooting, and even arts activities. New this year is a request for pre-registration just for the kids on this, and go ahead and do so through the WDFW website. Just look for the National Hunting and Fishing Day page, and you'll be directed to the pre-registration form. Last but not least, I'm fishing the Old Farts Tournament at Potholes Reservoir next week, and this is an open, so you're invited to attend as well. The only requisite is one person in the bass boat has to be over 40 years of age. Doesn't matter how old the second person is. Always a fun tournament. This year it's a 2-day tournament, September 21st and the 22nd. Go to bankslakebassclub.com and sign up today. And with that, you are now in the know about what's hot this week in the Pacific Northwest.
That's your first local shot of the outdoors. Now let's see what's going on across the nation.
Nature at its finest. That's what you'll find in Northeast Oregon's Wallowa County. Paddle a kayak or go fishing at Wallowa Lake. Hike into the Eagle Cap Wilderness or soak in the views after taking the tram to the top of Mount Howard. That's why we're home to one of Oregon's 7 wonders. Find out more at WallowaCountyChamber.com.
It's time for America Outdoors Radio, the show that covers the outdoor scene across the U.S. of A. and the entire continent. Fishing, hunting, conservation, outdoor recreation, and great destinations. We cover it all every week. It's your country, your outdoors. Let's explore it together with your host, John Kruse.
Welcome to the show. I'm glad you're here. It is September, one of my favorite months of the year, and this weekend I'm going to be doing a little fishing on my home lake with my best friend Rusty. We're going to be pre-fishing for the Old Farts Bass Tournament. It takes place every September at Potholes Reservoir in eastern Washington, and this will be about the 10th time we fished it. No, we've never cashed a check. As a matter of fact, we've never brought in a bag over 15 pounds, but I'm hoping this year our luck's going to change. We've got a few good spots to hit. We've been catching some quality bass, albeit not a lot of bass. And I've got a couple of tricks up my sleeve in terms of some new lures that I'm getting more confidence with. I'll let you know how it goes after we fish it next weekend. This week on the show, we're going to be taking you to Kansas, and we're not going to be talking about white-tailed deer or upland bird hunting. Nope, we're going to be talking about crappie fishing. That's a state you don't usually hear about, but there's some very good crappie fishing to be had there, and one person who knows all about it is a fishing guide who targets them on a regular basis. That would be Tobey Leavendusky. He's the man behind Absolute Fishing Guides, and we're going to have a fun conversation that's going to be about crappie fishing and figuring things out before forward-facing sonar came on the scene, and how he does it now with forward-facing sonar. Kind of a night and day experience, as you're going to find out. Toby's also going to tell you about some of his favorite lakes he likes to take clients out on, lakes that you might want to fish as well. Another guest we'll talk to today is Josh Warren. He is with Work Sharp, and as a longtime sponsor of the show, you are probably aware that they are all about making knife and tool sharpeners. Well, we're going to talk about essential knife and tool sharpeners you're going to want to have at your next hunting camp, whether it be deer camp, elk camp, duck camp, or maybe even a fishing camp. Not only that, Worksharp has a brand new knife sharpener that you can take with you in the field. You're going to want to hear about the folding knife sharpener. Josh will tell you more towards the end of our program today. Our third guest, well, we had some last-minute cancellations on two guests we invited on, or I should say postponements would be a better way to put it. Things came up for both of them. So we are going to the vault, bringing you a really interesting conversation we had last year with Sage Marcel. He wrote an article for Field & Stream that I'm sure you can still find online at fieldandstream.com about the super pigs of Canada. It's a very interesting story, and it could turn into a real environmental nightmare in the prairie potholes regions of Canada, where we rely on a lot of duck production. This portion of the show is brought to you every week by our friends at Henry Repeating Arms. It's a company I really get behind because they make all of their firearms right here in America. Now, Henry Repeating Arms is known for their classic, beautiful lever-action rifles, and they come in all sorts of different calibers. Everything from 22 caliber up to 30-30s and 357s and 45-70s, and a whole lot more. They also have recently come out with revolvers and a 9mm carbine that's great for self-defense or to have out on the ranch. And they've even got some single-shot and lever-action shotguns, too. All of their firearms are rugged, reliable, accurate right out of the box, and they all come with a lifetime satisfaction guarantee. So go to henryusa.com, check out the lineup of products they have available, look for an authorized dealer near you, and don't forget to ask for your free decals and catalog while you're there. The website again, henryusa.com. Let's go ahead and give you some outdoors news. We start off north in Alaska, where a very rare wolf attack took place. From Outdoor Life, we learned that two people were standing outside of their vehicle at a road construction site on the Dalton Highway when a wolf bit them both in the legs. The victims were taken to a hospital in Fairbanks, Alaska, to have their puncture wounds treated. Troopers say another unidentified motorist who witnessed the attack shot at the wolf, but believe they missed. The wolf fled into the nearby woods, and officials were unsuccessful in locating it that day. As to why the wolf did this, Alaska Department of Fish and Game Regional Supervisor Lincoln Parrott told Outdoor Life, "If we had the opportunity, we would collect the wolf, primarily because of the rabies question. We don't necessarily believe it was rabies, but just from a public safety perspective, it's something we're looking into." Parrott went on to say the more likely explanation for the attack is that the wolf had become habituated to humans and was possibly food conditioned. Apparently, the wolf was acting like it had been fed by other motorists along the highway in the past. But Parrott clarified that these theories are purely speculative at this point. Wolf attacks, as I mentioned, are very, very rare. As a matter of fact, in recent years, the only 2 fatal wolf attacks occurred in Alaska in 2010, when a school teacher who was jogging was mauled to death by wolves, and in Saskatchewan in 2005, when a university student was walking alone near a mining camp and was killed by a pack of wolves. The lessons learned here: number 1, if you're in wolf country and you see a wolf by the road, don't feed it. Just like bears, a fed bear is a dead bear, same thing will happen to a wolf. Also, if you're in wolf country, be very aware of your surroundings. And if you don't have a firearm, consider carrying bear spray and having it readily accessible.
It's time for the Trail of Shame.
Shame, shame on you. Shame, shame on you.
Stories of poachers, scoundrels, and other ne'er-do-wells, so if you see someone committing a criminal act on the water or in the field, turn them in. It's the right thing to do.
From the Missouri Department of Conservation, we learned 3 men have been charged with a 2023 illegal killing of elk in Shannon County. It started in November of 2023 with a report to the Missouri Department of Conservation of a mature bull elk found shot dead and left to rot near Klepsig Mill in Shannon County. It ended recently with 15 charges being filed in court against 3 Missouri men. A local 14-year-old deer hunter reported finding that bull elk in Shannon County during the opening weekend of firearms deer season. Over the next 9 months, conservation agents interviewed numerous deer hunters in the area along with other people passing through for information related to the investigation. They deployed 2 canine agents that logged more than 28 miles while searching the immediate area for clues and evidence. They also contacted local businesses and used their surveillance video footage along with footage from elk population monitoring cameras in the area to help identify the poachers. Eventually, agents got enough evidence to serve 5 search warrants and submitted numerous items of possible evidence to forensics labs. The evidence ended with 3 men from the Bone Terra area being charged with multiple violations. They also killed deer that they failed to telecheck, which meant they were in illegal possession of them. We don't have the names of the poachers from the press release, but they know who they are, and some of their friends and family know who they are too. And you know what? You know why you are walking the trail of shame this week.
Shame on you.
Turning to the Great Lakes, according to JYG Pro Fishing, the Lake Michigan salmon bite is on. Try midday through evening jigging and see for yourself, is what they say. More and more anglers are catching salmon using vertical jigging or slow pitch jigging in the Great Lakes. This time of year, the salmon have moved in and bullied the lake trout out of their usual spots. Captain Ron Dome of Sportfish Michigan has been doing exceedingly well with these techniques, both with clients and for pleasure. JYG Pro Fishing offers a wide variety of jigs perfect for the salmon in the Great Lakes. The wild and seamy lines are the most popular in 60-gram weights to get to these fish down deep in a hurry. On a personal note, I love vertical jigging as well. I know it works for salmon. It also works for walleye. And I've had luck in the saltwater using them to catch sea bass and other bottom fish. My favorite is actually the Sonic bait fish from Max Lure. In the saltwater, I like to use an ounce lure. If you're ice fishing for panfish, you can go all the way down to a 1/16 of an ounce. If you're after walleye, I've found that the 1/4 ounce size is a really good one to use too. Again, vertical jigging. It's a thing both in the Great Lakes and all over America. Find out more from JYG Pro Fishing and Max, that's MACKS Lure. Stick around. Right after this short break, you're going to hear from Sage Marsal about those super pigs in Canada, a mix of domestic pigs and wild boar that are wreaking havoc in the prairie pothole system.
When you think of Work Sharp knife and tool sharpeners, you probably think of sharpeners for the shop or the field, but Work Sharp has a whole lineup of sharpeners for the kitchen too. We're talking about everything from easy-to-use manual and electric knife sharpeners to ceramic honing rods, whetstones, and the new rolling knife sharpener, an innovative manual sharpener that will do wonders for your cutlery. Make sure there's never a dull moment in your kitchen. Check out the entire product line and order today at WorkSharpTools.com. That's WorkSharpTools.com.
Sportsman's Cove Lodge is Alaska's best lodge, and as you know, I'm a big fan. I've been to Prince of Wales Island in southeast Alaska several times. I love the float plane ride in. I love the fishing for halibut, salmon, and cod, and I can't get enough of the fantastic food and dynamite hospitality that they offer at the lodge. Now they are building new accommodations, new rooms that'll have television. They've brought Wi-Fi to the lodge too, and they're even offering extended 7-day stays with not just fishing, but other adventures too, as well as the opportunity to have a corporate retreat. Find out more about Sportsman's Cove Lodge and book your stay today at alaskasbestlodge.com. That's alaskasbestlodge.com, and use the promo code RADIO10. That's RADIO10. Let me repeat that one more time. That's alaskasbestlodge.com and the promo code RADIO10 for 10% off your next adventure.
Are you looking to reel in the marketing opportunity of a lifetime? Then set the hook, because we've got it right here for you. America Outdoors Radio has sponsorships available, and we offer affordable platforms to reach thousands of listeners interested in fishing, hunting, and the outdoors. Find out more by contacting John Kruse through his website at americaoutdoorsradio.com.
In today's news, I'm cooking a brisket. Let's go to Jill at my house to see how it's going.
This is your house and you brought me and the crew to check on your brisket?
That's correct, Jill. How's it looking?
This is a Camp Chef Woodwind Wi-Fi. You know you can check your cook right from your phone, right?
I didn't know that was an option, Jill. Well, never mind. But before you leave, can you feed the dog?
What? No.
When we get back, why is my check engine light on? The answer may shock me.
This year, resolve to immerse yourself into the great outdoors. Whether you're learning to hunt, fish, hike, camp, paddle, or grill, or are looking to take yourself to the next level, the place to go for the gear you need is Sportsman's Warehouse. With over 145 stores around the nation, Sportsman's Warehouse is truly America's premier outfitter. Find a store near you or shop online anytime at sportsmans.com. That's sportsmans.com for Sportsman's Warehouse.
Northwest Oregon's Tillamook Coast is not only the place to go for cheese and ice cream, but also for outdoors fun. Hook into a salmon in Tillamook Bay or one of the rivers flowing into it. Harvest tasty clams from our bays and pull up a crabberine or pot full of big Dungeness crab. Visit our parks, walk the beaches, explore our forests, and enjoy our coastal communities. You are going to love it here. Plan your trip today at tillamookcoast.com. That's tillamookcoast.com.
Explore the Dalles, the hub where discovery and history come together. Whether the Northwest is your home or you're on an adventure, the Dalles welcomes you. Just 80 miles east of Portland is the perfect year-round escape with a community that cares about you. 300 days of sun, breathtaking outdoor recreation, and a downtown full of the unexpected. Oh, and the rich history that began before the Oregon Trail. Start planning at explorethedalles.com.
Come to Mardon Resort for some great fishing. Potholes Reservoir has been named as one of the top 10 bass lakes in the western U.S. by Bassmaster Magazine. There's also great fishing for walleye, quality rainbow trout, panfish, catfish, and more. Don't have a boat? Don't worry. If you're staying at the resort, you can fish at the marina or explore the Seep Lake south of the reservoir for good fishing and a beautiful scenic landscape. Plan your trip today by going to mardonresort.com. That's mardonresort.com.
Welcome back to America Outdoors Radio. I'm John Kruse. Our next stop is the Golden State of California. That's where we get to chat with Sage Marshall. He's an editor for Field & Stream, and if you go to fieldandstream.com and read the latest edition, you're going to read a fascinating article about wild pigs and how they're causing problems in an unlikely place that would be Canada. Sage, welcome to the show.
Hi, John. Thank you so much for having me.
It is a pleasure to have you on the air. And before we talk about pigs in Canada, let's talk about wild pigs in general. They're very common, prolific, as a matter of fact, in parts of the Southeast and in Texas and in parts of your home state of California. What kind of damage do wild pigs do to habitat and the environment?
Well, John, wild pigs are one of the most destructive invasive species we have here in the United States. They compete with native species They actually eat native species like ducks and goslings, and beyond that, they damage vegetation, they damage crops, and they have actually been known they can take down a white-tailed deer.
Wow.
So wild hogs, while many people enjoy hunting them, they are quite destructive.
I didn't know. I mean, I knew that they took out smaller animals. I think a lot of folks don't know that. People just think of pigs rooting around in the mud for whatever slop is thrown their way. And, of course, that's kind of a barnyard domestic situation. But I think people have this picture in their mind of pigs doing this. But, wow, I had no idea they could take down something the size of a white-tailed deer. That is amazing. So let's talk about pigs in Canada. How did wild boar from Europe get into Canada?
Well, the issue is actually relatively recent. Here in the U.S., we've had feral hogs for hundreds of years, but in Canada, they weren't really imported to the country until the 1980s. When there was a big push to diversify the agriculture in the region, they brought in some exotic species, such as European wild boar and ostriches and the like. Now, most of those wild boars were put on meat farms, and some of them were put on high-fenced hunting preserves. But they found that to help the species survive better in such cold, harsh climates, they interbred those European boars with domestic hogs, creating what Dr. Ryan Brook, the leader of the University of Saskatchewan Canadian Wild Pig Research Project, dubs super pigs. Now, these super pigs, because of their large size, are actually able to survive in the cold climates of Canada's prairie pothole provinces, which was one of the real surprises with this whole issue. And unfortunately, in the 2000s, the market for these super pigs dropped off, and many farmers were unable to sell them and actually ended up releasing them into the wild. And that's not to mention those pigs that just escaped from their enclosures and started breeding populations in Canada.
When I was in the Army in Germany, I vividly remember coming across wild boars and finding myself one time in the middle of the night walking from one position to another in the middle of a herd of wild boars, and I didn't know it until I had my night vision goggles on. They are some really ugly and fierce-looking beasts. These super pigs, do they look more like our regular barnyard pigs, or do they look more like the wild boar on steroids?
I would really say, from what I can tell, they look more like wild boar on steroids. And they have, those wild boar tusks, and they can actually be dangerous to people, and they've been known to attack them before.
So are we talking about Saskatchewan and Alberta, where the most of these super pigs are right now?
Primarily Saskatchewan and Manitoba, although they have detected some wild boars in Alberta as well.
And give or take, how bad is the problem up there? Are we talking hundreds? Are we talking thousands? Are we talking tens of thousands of these animals?
Well, researchers don't actually have any accurate population estimates so far, but they do track the incidence of reported wild boars, and those are in the hundreds. So with sightings in the hundreds, I would say that the populations are definitely in the thousands, though, like I said, we don't have any accurate numbers on the population so far.
Now, here in the U.S., we have very, very liberal hunting laws when it comes to wild pigs, so we can try to control the population the best we can through hunting. How's Canada approaching the management of wild pigs and trying to eradicate them?
Well, Canada also has open season on wild boars in these regions, so it's legal to target and kill wild boars in those prairie pothole regions all year long. Now, what some of the researchers have found is that this recreational hunting isn't always a very effective way at mitigating the spread of wild boars. They've found that they've had the most success so far by trapping entire sounders. Oftentimes when you hunt wild boars in this area, you end up dispersing the groups, and because of their incredibly high reproductive rate, which is way higher than anything ever seen with deer and elk, they'll actually go and form new groups, and many of them will also go nocturnal if they sense hunting pressure, which makes them even harder to find and relocate.
Very interesting. You know, I've heard some of this before from the Missouri Department of Conservation, which also advocates for trapping as opposed to hunting, much to the chagrin of some people who would like to get rid of these animals from hunting. And some of the same arguments have been put forth by the state of Missouri. So really interesting that Canada's thinking the same way here. Now, here's another question. I'm guessing that wild boars and super pigs aren't exactly interested in having ID or COVID vaccines or passports before they cross the border. Are we seeing any of them crossing the border into the States yet?
Well, that's a good question, John. So far, there have likely already been some boars crossing the border. In fact, in these parts of the U.S.-Canada border, there is hardly any fencing and there's hardly any biological barriers. So essentially wildlife moves freely across the borders. There have been some reports of wild boars that likely moved down into North Dakota. Researchers in Canada have detected wild boars within 10 miles of the U.S. border. So the answer to that question is that yes, likely there have been some limited boars spreading from Canada into the U.S., and there's likely more to come.
And I guess one last thing we ought to point out here from a conservation point of view, they're in the prairie potholes region, which is literally the duck factory for North America. And I'm guessing come springtime, they're going to be feeding on a lot of ducklings and goslings, aren't they?
Yes, and that's actually one of the most worrying parts of this whole equation. The prairie potholes are one of the greatest production regions for ducks in North America, and this is exactly where the wild boar are proliferating. And they have proven that they will actually eat ducks and ducklings in the spring, which, you know, we don't have any numbers exactly on how much it's affecting waterfowl populations, but the boars are known to actually make homes in wet-tail regions and make nests in cattails, and it can't be good for ducklings.
I'll tell you what, when it comes to invasive species, very little comes good, whether we're talking those snakehead carp that you have in the Mississippi River system, whether you're talking zebra mussels, or now talking about super pigs out of Canada. Let's hope that the authorities up there can get a handle and that we can get ahead of this ourselves before it becomes a huge problem in our northern states. Sage, thanks for shining a light on this today on America Outdoors Radio.
Thanks so much for having me, John.
I'm Anthony Imperato, president of Henry Repeating Arms. Patriotic Americans are looking to protect and provide for their families now more than ever. Henry has over 200 rifles and shotguns to choose from. Made in America or not made at all. And backed by a lifetime guarantee. Order a free catalog, decals, and a list of Henry dealers in your area. Go to henryusa.com or call 1-800-958-4993. Thank you and God bless America.
A sharp blade makes short work of any project you have in the outdoors, in the kitchen, or in the shop. Hone your knives and tools with quality power and manual sharpeners from WorkSharp. Find out more at WorkSharpTools.com.
Campers, adventure seekers, hunters, and foodies. No matter the lifestyle, we can all agree on one thing. Great food and great people are worth remembering. At Camp Chef, we don't just make grills. We create each product knowing that a warm meal is always better when it's shared with those we love. Learn more about Camp Chef grills, smokers, and portable cooking equipment at campchef.com. That's campchef.com for a better way to cook outdoors. Ready for more local fishing and hunting? You got it. It's the Pacific Northwest edition of America Outdoors Radio, right here on Seattle's Sports Radio, KJR.
It's time for another Extended Max Minute, brought to you every week by Max Lure. And with us this week, once again, is Bob Loomis. Welcome back, Bob.
Thanks, John.
So it is September, one of my favorite months of the year for trout fishing. Number one, the crowds have gone away. Number two, the water is usually low and clear, which can be both good and bad, but the water is cooling and those trout are starting to put the feed bag on. What would you recommend using to catch trout, whether you're fishing the Wallowa River or the Tucannon or some other stream like maybe in Montana?
You know, John, this time of the year is really a fun time of the year because, as you stated, those fish, you know, they're starting to put the feed bag on. They know that they're going to run low on food during cold weather situations, and they are chomping at virtually anything. And two of my favorite lures to use this time of the year, number one, the smile blade fly. The smile blade fly is a modified woolly bugger, so it's a medium-sized fly that will have a smile blade on top of it for attraction. So it can be trolled, but it can also be casted. It's light enough that you can cast it with a fly rod or you can drift it. So there's a lot of different things that you can do with it, but it works fantastic this time of the year. As well as we just got through fishing last weekend up on a lake where we caught over 70 plus cutthroat, and we were throwing one of your favorites, the Promise Keeper.
Oh, yes.
The Promise Keeper, you know, they come in 1/16 ounce up to 1/4 ounce, so you can fit them to virtually anything. And, you know, fishing the 16th and the 1/8 ounce this time of the year with those low, clear waters works fantastic for the trout fisheries around here.
Well, there you go, folks. A couple options for September trout fishing. Get on out there. It's a great time to do it, and bring some products from Max Lure when you do. Thanks as always, Bob.
Thank you.
You want kokanee this summer? Well, reach into your tackle box and pull out a Pee-wee Wiggle Hoochie from Max Lure. This unique lure has a crankbait bill that creates a lot of movement, and it's designed with high UV and glow squid bodies, and it works fantastic in summer and early fall when the water temps are warm and the fish are looking for more movement and speed from a lure. Look for the Pee-wee Wiggle Hoochie at sporting goods stores or online at maxlure.com.
A seafood bounty is waiting for you on Northwest Oregon's Tillamook Coast. Catch a limit of big salmon, haul up a pot of delicious crab. Plan your visit today at tillamookcoast.com.
You're back in with America Outdoors Radio. I'm John Kruse. Our next stop is Kansas. And when you think of Kansas, you probably think about whitetail deer hunting, maybe pheasant or quail hunting, but you probably don't think of crappie fishing. Well, you might want to change your mind about that. I just read an article at Crappie Now. Website is crappienow.com, written by well-known outdoors writer Brent Frazee, and he was on a trip with Tobey Leavendusky, the man who owns Absolute Fishing Guides in Kansas. And really interesting article, and that's why we've got Tobey on the line today. Tobey, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So one of the really interesting things in that article at Crappie Now that Brent wrote was about the evolution of crappie fishing for you as a guide. So let's talk about before the advent of forward-facing sonar, and you're just trying to find these crappie using 2D sonar. How did you go about doing it back then?
Well, I think back then it was more of understanding the species and their behaviors, and then, you know, trial and error. So if typically you start at a depth and you'd find structure and fish it, and if they fished 2 or 3 structures at that depth, then I always started shallow and moved deeper. So start up shallow, hit a few brush piles that you snag and you find, or you find it on 2D sonar. Before 2D sonar, you know, you'd snag them and find them and throw a buoy, and then go ahead and do your sonar, find a tree, drop on it. You can see fish on them, but you're not sure. Sometimes they're not crappie, you know, they may be huge bluegill, or they may be, you know, every now and then you get some monstrous shad that are kind of hanging around some cover. You might think they're crappie, and you drop down and you snag one and figure out it's not a crappie, and keep moving until you find them and figure out if they're in the rocks or on brush piles or on standing timber or off ledges. And once you find them, you're on them, but it may take a lot longer time to find them, you know?
Yeah, I hear you. You know, a buddy of mine and I, we've got a bass boat together, and we do not have forward-facing sonar. And we've just got a regular fish finder at the front of the boat and one at the console. And yeah, when we find a school of fish, we drop a marker buoy. That's how we do it. So it's kind of old school, especially compared to forward-facing sonar. Now, I had the chance to head out to Fort Peck Reservoir and fish with a walleye guide using it. I was amazed at this real-time, live-action sonar that not only tells tells you where the fish are, but you can actually see how they react to the lure. This is a game changer, isn't it?
You know what? That's pretty much, it's truthfully a game changer. I mean, being able to see that crappie and know it's a crappie, and then how he responds to your bait to know whether you need to downsize, change colors, you're able to do what you need to do to start catching them. You know what I mean?
I do. And here's a question for you. So if you're getting no reaction at all, obviously you're going to start mixing things up until you start getting reaction in terms of different offerings. But when they're following but not committing, or you're just getting a couple of bites, what's the first thing you usually do? Is it changing colors, or is it upsizing or downsizing your bait?
You know what? Typically speaking, if I drop that lure in front of them and they don't react, which ironically, I'm going to back up and tell you a funny story.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'll move forward. But I did a tournament, last month, and there's a big old crappie on the tree, and I dropped that lure down, and I had no reaction. And I was kind of puzzled by it, and I moved it 2 or 3 times, and he never reacted. So I actually pulled it up out of the water and dropped it again, and then he acted normal. And he raised up, he wagged his tail, raised up, knocked the bait, pulled him up. He's blind on one side. I said, well, I get it. I was on your bad side there, buddy. But, yeah, typically if they're short striking or they're chasing the bait and they see it real well, then typically I always start big and go small. I'll downsize it. I've got other few tricks in the book. I mean, it depends on what time of year, but usually I start big, go small, and maybe even switch to where you go small and maybe they don't want a plastic today. Then I don't ever rule out hair jigs and I don't ever rule out crappie spoons. A lot of that depends on the time of the year to me here in Kansas. But, I mean, we got 3 different arsenals to choose from if you're not going to do live bait. And so typically I start out big, go smaller, and then if we're not having luck with a couple different profiles, then we'll switch and do hair jigs, or if that's not working, go to spoons. One of the 3 will work.
Interesting. What kind of spoons are you using for crappie? That's a little unusual for where I live out in the West.
They can be super productive here in the winter, colder weather, sometimes in the spring and sometimes in the fall. But they're just small, like Passmasters, maybe 1/8 ounce, just pure silver. Or you can use color. Blue and silver is good here. Sometimes chartreuse and silver. But I shoot a lot of plastics, so 9 times out of 10 we're going to catch them on plastics. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. So let's talk a little bit about the fisheries that you have there in Kansas. What lakes do you like to fish? And tell us about the size of the crappie and the numbers of crappie that are in them.
All right. Well, yeah, I mean, normally I fish Prairie Lake. That's my home lake. It's the closest for me. It's mainly a brush pile lake. A lot of brush piles spread throughout. They've got some decent crappie. I mean, every year it seems like it kind of changes as to the size with all our lakes. Some years and some winters we just have stellar years where they average 12 plus averagely, and then other years we're averaging 10.5 to 11s, but this is winter I'm talking about. But they've got some shoulders on them, so they're really good fillets and firm. Then my next lake is Clinton. Love Clinton. Clinton's a fantastic live scope lake because it's got a lot of standing structure and a lot of brush piles, and it's good fishing. Usually you average 12-inch or better on that lake in the winter. I mean, 13s, 14s, of course. And then usually in the winter, it depends on who calls me and what they're wanting to do. I'm always trying to be specific for the person who calls. So if they're a huge fisherman and they got plenty of fish in the freezer and they want trophy fish, then we're probably going to go, and they want a live scope, then we're probably going to go to Clinton or potentially Pomona too. But if they just want fillets and they want to stock up for winter, then we'll hit Pomona because the limit at Pomona is 50.
Oh, wow.
So you can get 50 per person down there where the other 2 lakes are 20 per person.
Well, it sounds like some very good fishing available in the state of Kansas. A lot of folks didn't hear about before. Now, there's one other lake you fish, Milford.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about this one.
Well, it's a fantastic reservoir. It is located west of me, just west of Manhattan, north of Junction City. It's got really clear water. It's a great fishery for other species as well. They got a blue cap breeding program in there, and they got a walleye breeding program in there. So that lake's really good for those 2 species, and they carry some really big wipers.
Nice.
Had a lot of fun chasing wipers, but their crappie are good. There's not a lot of brush piles in that lake, and it's kind of a solid rock lake. So I would recommend, if you don't know crappie for Milford, I would definitely, get someone to take you out and show you the lay of the land for that lake. I think Perry and Clinton, and Pomona, it's pretty. If you're a crappie fisherman, you're not going to struggle, but I think potentially Milford is one of those lakes you could struggle trying to get crappie on.
All right. Well, if you want to explore Milford Reservoir or any of these other lakes in Kansas, and you want to go with a guide, the person to go with is Tobey Leavendusky, and his website, absolutefishingguides.com. And once you get to absolutefishingguides.com, just go ahead and look for Toby's phone number and text him. That's the best way to get him talking to you in a hurry. Again, absolutefishingguides.com. Check out Toby's phone number, give him a text, and set up your next fishing trip. Check out the article that Brent Frazee wrote about him as well at crappienow.com. Crappie Now is absolutely free, and the trips that Toby charges, pretty darn reasonable too. Toby, thanks so much for sharing this with us today on America Outdoors Radio.
Thank you for having me.
Well, now that you've got some great advice about catching crappie, hopefully you can go out there and catch a whole mess of them. And when you do, you're going to have to clean them. And the job gets a lot easier if you have a sharp fillet knife. And how do you sharpen it? Well, with a knife sharpener from WorkSharp. You can either use an electric model. They've got a whole line of kitchen knife sharpeners. I've got one on my counter that I use all the time on my cutlery, including my fillet knife. And I've got a guided field sharpener that I use when I'm out in the field. So if you're at the fish cleaning station or just on the bank of the river or the lake, that works just fine too. Either way, WorkSharp makes your life easier on the water and when you get off the water and need to clean those fish. So look for electric and manual knife sharpeners from WorkSharp at their website at worksharptools.com or at quality sporting goods stores all over the United States. The website again, worksharptools.com.
Come explore the Dalles in Oregon for outdoors fun. Hike amongst the wildflowers, bike our riverfront trail, or visit the Gorge Discovery Center where you can enjoy a live raptor display, or even check out our National Neon Sign Museum. But don't forget the fishing. We've got salmon, steelhead, bass, walleye, and monster-sized sturgeon waiting just for you. When the day is done, tell those tall tales at one of our wineries, breweries, or restaurants and plan your next adventure. Find out more at explorethedalles.com.
Sportsman's Cove Lodge is Alaska's best lodge, and as you know, I'm a big fan. I've been to Prince of Wales Island in southeast Alaska several times. I love the float plane ride in. I love the fishing for halibut, salmon, and cod, and I can't get enough of the fantastic food and dynamite hospitality that they offer at the lodge. Now they are building new accommodations, new rooms that'll have television. They've brought Wi-Fi to the lodge too, and they're even offering extended 7-day stays with not just fishing, but other adventures too, as well as the opportunity to have a corporate retreat. Find out more about Sportsman's Cove Lodge and book your stay today at alaskasbestlodge.com. That's alaskasbestlodge.com, and use the promo code RADIO10. That's Radio 10. Let me repeat that one more time. That's alaskasbestlodge.com and the promo code RADIO10 for 10% off your next adventure.
Looking to reel in the marketing opportunity of a lifetime? Then set the hook because we've got it right here. America Outdoors Radio has sponsorships available, and we offer an affordable platform to reach thousands of listeners interested in fishing, hunting, and the outdoors. Find out more by contacting host John Kruse through his website at americaoutdoorsradio.com. That's americaoutdoorsradio.com. But hurry, if you wait too long, this big opportunity might just get away. That's americaoutdoorsradio.com.
You know, a lot of times you have to choose between something high quality or something that saves you money. But if you could get both, why not? Especially when it comes to healthcare, and that is MediShare. You get both. Many families save $500 a month with MediShare, and that's huge. But it's also true that people wind up way more satisfied, too. The member satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. Double. That's because MediShare works. It has for more than 30 years. It's a community of Christians who have shared more than $5 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth. They love the huge PPO network. So, yeah, really, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price in 2 minutes. Here's the number. Just call 855-SHARE-40. That's 855-SHARE-40. 855-SHARE-40.
Welcome back to America Outdoors Radio. We've got Josh Warren on the line again with Work Sharp. The reason why is because hunting season is upon us, and a lot of you out there are going to be enjoying time with buddies and friends and family at deer camps or elk camps, maybe duck camps, and yeah, there's fish camps still going on too. Josh, welcome to the show.
Thanks, John. I'm glad to be here.
Well, one thing you need to have if you're going hunting or fishing for that matter, and if you're going to be in a camp situation, are some sharp knives and some sharp tools. And it just so happens that Work Sharp just happens to make knife and tool sharpeners. So let's talk about a few essentials, and we'll start off with things that the hunter might want to have on their person when they're in the field. And you've got something brand new, don't you?
We do. We call it the folding field sharpener. It's about the size of a pocket knife, and it folds similarly to a folding pocket knife, and even has a pocket clip so it can get stored in your pocket, or my preference is tucking it in a bino harness or maybe inside of a molly strapping on a pack. You fold it open, and it exposes a diamond abrasive and a fine ceramic hone. Both of those have angle guides just right up to the abrasive. So you rest your knife on that ramp and then slide it across the stone. It's like training wheels, holding your knife at the right angle.
And how many strokes do you usually do? 10 each?
Yeah, if you're trying to sharpen a knife from very dull, then you're going to want to do, 10 to 12 passes per side on the diamond, and then switch to the ceramic and alternate strokes, and, about 10 passes per side, one side, then the other, and back again. And that's removing that burr and just finely shaping that edge. If you're in the middle of an animal, and this is one place it's actually really crucial to have some form of a knife sharpener. If you're in the middle of an animal, then pausing as soon as you start to feel that knife not cut just like new, hit the ceramic a few times, 5 to 10 times per side, and it will realign all of the little pieces of metal that make up that knife edge and get back in and get to work, and it'll feel like it's cutting great again.
Oh, great advice. And folks, correct me if I'm wrong here, Josh, the folding field sharpener, it's not available in stores yet. You can only get it online at worksharptools.com. Is that correct?
Yep, just at worksharptools.com. It'll be there for a while. Sometimes we come out with a sharpener like this that we think, hey, this is new. We really love it. But, we're not sure if it's something that every store everywhere is going to want. And so for you guys listening, you get the inside scoop a little bit. You won't see it on the shelves at Cabela's or Sportsman's Warehouse, but you can find it at worksharptools.com.
Something else very handy to have on your person is the pocket knife sharpener. That's been around for a while, but very cost effective and fits right into the pocket.
Yep. Yeah, super simple, no moving parts on this one. One thing about the folding field sharpener is those abrasives will fold together, protecting them and anything in your pack from being scratched on them. Pocket sharpener doesn't offer that, but I do like how it holds in the hand. So it has similar diamond and ceramic abrasives with angle guides, so slightly larger, but really that largeness allows for easy holding. But yeah, make sure that you keep those diamond abrasives away from anything that you could scratch. Similar process. You've got the angle guide on the diamond, 10 to 12 strokes for restoring a dull knife, and then about 10 times per side on the ceramic.
Yeah, and the pocket knife sharpener, folks, is only $17.95 MSRP, so that's great there. Now, the one I personally love, and I have in my glove box, is the guided field sharpener, and I think a lot of hunters probably have this in their glove boxes or maybe even on their person when they're hunting.
Yeah, the guided field sharpener is a fan favorite, man. I think it's 10 years old at this point, and where I'm on the business side, and so I look at the sales numbers, and we're seeing the sales of this up significantly over last year, and you usually don't see that with products that are 10 years old. This thing is well loved. It's a little bit larger, but it's definitely more full service. So it has 2 different diamond abrasives. They're about twice the size of the pocket sharpener and a little more than that of the folding field sharpener, 1 inch by 4 inches, I believe. And so a coarse diamond, a fine diamond, a ceramic rod, and a leather strop. This really allows you to take a knife in the field from very dull to very, very sharp, that leather strop being just that X factor of sharpness. And with that, it's a little bit heavier. It still fits in a hand. It fits in a pocket. I don't know the weight off the top of my head, but, it's really probably only 5 or 6 ounces still, but a little bit more bulky. So if you're trying to cut all the weight out of your system, then this may not be the option. But if you're going out for a day hike, it definitely stays in my pack, or even summer backpacking when I'm not worried about packing an animal out, or being as light as possible for a week in the elk woods.
Let's head back to camp. So, lots of folks are going to want to have their cutlery that's sharp. And you've got something that's just perfect for putting right next to the prep station or maybe on a table. And this is one, I guess it's been around for a while, but it's the first time I've seen it, the bench stone knife sharpener.
Mm-hmm. One of my favorite things about being, with Work Sharp or, knowing how to sharpen a knife is when I get to show up at camp and be that guy who gets to sharpen every knife in camp. And, it might get a little bit old at some point, the 10th knife someone hands you. But really, what a gift to be able to be there. And people don't have the good concept of how to sharpen a knife. And so when you're able to say, great, let me take that knife, they've been making it work for months, potentially, or years, very dull, and put a nice new edge back on that and hand it back to them, and usually watch them try not to cut themselves on a brand new edge. It really is it's a fun experience. And so something I would say, sure, buy a knife sharpener, but really, buy a knife sharpener and then go sharpen every knife in camp. It's a fun time. The bench stone is a 3-sided stone with a coarse, medium, and fine abrasive, coarse and medium diamond, then fine ceramic. Abrasives are a bit larger. It sits great on a tailgate or a stump or a table or wherever. And those angle guides are mounted again right next to the abrasive, so kind of holds your hand as you are sharpening a knife and provides that consistent angle reference.
We've got time for one electric sharpener. So let's say you've got a generator or maybe an RV at camp. What's the one you'd recommend?
Man, our tried and true sharpener is the Knife and Tool Sharpener Mark II. It's in its second version, but very similar to what it has always been. It has a triangle-shaped belt track and angle guides on each side. This sharpener is really just great for knives that are designed to be getting back to work. And so boning knives or fillet knives or even larger chopping knives and skinning knives, all of them can be sharpened pretty fast. There's a coarse and a fine belt, and I use that fine belt for, leave this thing set up in the garage when I come back from camp and I'm just touching up a knife as I'm breaking down an animal, or run it at camp with the generator or at the RV or whatever, and keep all the knives sharp as you're working, or sharpen all the tools, the axes, the machetes, anything you're using to clear brush or make camp.
There you go, folks. Essentials for your next hunting or fishing or any other camping experience you might have. You can check out all of these products at worksharptools.com. You can also find a lot of them at big box stores such as Sportsman's Warehouse, Cabela's, Bass Pro Shops. Are you in Shields as well?
Yep, we're available all over the country, and we love it when our customers choose to support our retailers.
Again, essentials for your next hunting camp, fishing camp, or other camp. It's all provided by WorkSharp, and check it out at worksharptools.com. Thanks as always, Josh.
Thanks, John.
Next up, congratulations are in order to Tom Huen, who won the Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's National Walleye Tour Championship fishing on Lake Huron in Oscoda, Michigan. Tom weighed in a total of 58 pounds and 10 ounces of walleye over the 3-day tournament. As a matter of fact, he came into the National Walleye Tour weigh-in with the biggest bag of the tournament on the final day, which was a 5-fish limit of walleye that weighed 23 pounds and 12 ounces. That limit allowed him to climb up the leaderboard and take the victory. Day 1, he was able to catch 16 pounds, and day 2, he caught 18 pounds, 14 ounces of fish. Quinn, who hails from Minnesota, says, "This win I absolutely have to dedicate to Garmin LiveScope. This has truly been one of the toughest tournaments of the year, and every single fish I landed in the last 3 days, I was looking at my graph. Although he primarily used one rod throughout the duration of the tournament, he sealed the deal using crawlers rigged on a 3/8 ounce black jig head. In total, Tom walks away with $132,000 in cash and prizes, which includes a brand new 2024 Ranger 620 FS boat with a Mercury 250 Pro SX outboard, along with a $500 Garmin contingency bonus for having exclusive Garmin electronics and trolling motor." Way to go, Tom. That is quite an honor indeed. On that note, it's time to wrap things up. If you didn't catch the whole show, we'll be uploading it as a podcast in a couple of days. Just look for America Outdoors Radio wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you want to hear the extended Pacific Northwest edition of America Outdoors Radio, go to the Cove Sportsman's Network. That's on YouTube. They've got their very own channel, and they exclusively air the Pacific Northwest edition of America Outdoors Radio with 13 extra minutes of additional content, heard Saturday mornings on Seattle Sports Radio, KJR FM 93.3. Time to take the dog for a walk and then do some pre-fishing for that tournament next week. Wish my buddy Rusty and I luck, and who knows, maybe, just maybe, we'll finally cash a check at a bass tournament. Hopefully, you'll be getting out in the water or in the field yourself in the next few days. In the meantime, stay healthy, be blessed, and remember this: it is your country and your outdoors, so get out there and enjoy it.
Northwest Oregon's Tillamook Coast is not only the place to go for cheese and ice cream, but also for outdoors fun. Hook into a salmon in Tillamook Bay or one of the rivers flowing into it. Harvest tasty clams from our bays and pull up a crab-reen or pot full of big Dungeness crab. Plan your trip today at tillamookcoast.com.
Don't leave yet. We've got one more local shot of fishing and hunting to wrap up the Pacific Northwest edition of America Outdoors Radio.
Next up, we are taking you down to Pacific City, Oregon. That's where you're going to find a dory boat fleet where you can actually go fishing in a very unique way off the coast of Oregon. One of those charter operators is Joey Rocha. He's the owner of Rocha's Dory Charter. Joey, it's been a while. Great to have you back on the line.
Yeah, nice to be here.
So you just got back from chartering boats in Alaska, and now you're going to be going back to your dory boat charter fishing. Tell me what these fishing trips are going to look like in September and October.
This month in September, we're going to be doing rockfish, non-selective salmon, and crabbing. And I've been seeing some photos. Looks like it's been pretty good fishing. And then in October, it'll be rockfish, lingcod, and crabbing until we got to pull our crab pots out.
The crabbing, is this one of the better times of year to do it?
Yeah, it is. They're starting to get nice and firm, and there should be a lot of them in the pot.
And you've got very generous limits in Oregon for crabs compared to us in Washington State. Why don't you tell our listeners what the limit is?
Our limit in Oregon is 12 apiece.
That's nice. 12 tasty Dungeness crab apiece. And let's talk a little bit about the salmon fishing. You said it's non-selective. Are we talking both coho and Chinook this time of year?
Yep, they're going to be both around, and I fish for both of them, so... Yep, and it's non-selective coho, so any coho goes.
And the other thing we should mention is the very unique way you go fishing. You're not stepping onto a boat at a marina. Tell our listeners how you launch and how you get back to shore.
Oh, it's kind of controlled chaos, you know. You just back the dory boats right in the surf. I got a guy that when it comes off the trailer, turns it around as I go park and holds it in the surf while I run back, hop in the boat, and get it out deep enough, and he lets go, and we motor on through the waves, and then we come back in. You just pick a good wave and ride it on in, slide right up on the beach.
That sounds like an absolute hoot. If folks want to go fishing with you, what's the website we should send them to?
RochasDoryCharters.com.
That's RochasDoryCharter.com. That's RochasDoryCharter.com. Check it out. Go fishing off the Oregon coast and do so in a way that you're going to remember for a long time. Joey, thanks for sharing this with us today.
Yep, thank you.
That's all for this week, but don't worry. We'll do it all again next Saturday morning from 7 to 8, right here on Seattle's Sports Radio, KJR.